in your binder on the i.t.a. intervention protocols. It's the first one. I'm not sure if I need to set this right here to begin with. But as I was going through this with Jane, I noticed there were some things that I was doing differently from the protocol. And this is the third time that I've been to one of these conferences, so I was kind of thinking that I would have all this down, but it's a lot to take in. So I'm glad that this is in here, and I plan on going back to this probably monthly, just to check on it. I also work with a couple other people, so they can help keep me accountable. There was a gentleman upstairs yesterday that was talking about a study that he was aware of where people had been trained in the roar, and then after the first week, they were still doing it, following the protocol. But then after 4 weeks, we're human beings, we tend to kind of deviate and think of, maybe we know how to do something a little bit better or forget pieces of it. So I think this is what's been tested, this is what has worked. So, this is what I'm going to stick with. That being said, you want to stick to this, but your main focus has to be your reader that you're working with and what are their needs. And I don't want people to become so worried about this that they forget that. A lot of the roar happens, I would say, here as you're thinking about what do I need to do and listening to the student and interacting with the student. But these are the steps that you want to make sure that you follow. The first two were a couple that were new to me, hadn't done before. If you're beginning a new story, preview it by taking a picture walk or giving a brief summary. It kind of sets the stage for what they're going to be going through. I noticed one of the gentlemen upstairs, when he was practicing, was pointing out characters in the picture. And I really liked that because I think that will kind of make some connections with the reader and what they're reading, and maybe make it easier to remember some of the names as they're going through. The second point, if there are pictures, cover them up. And I had never considered this. As a teacher, we were taught to use the pictures for context clues with beginning readers, and that is a strategy, and it's a good strategy while it works. But eventually, when I was talking to Jane this morning, she said, those pictures are going to disappear from their text. And if that's your main strategy and that's what you're relying on to get you through, it's no longer going to work. So you're going to come to a screeching halt. So as you're reading, this is under the pretest section. We call it a cold read. It's something that they haven't seen before, and we just want them to do their best at it. And it's going to kind of be our gauge to see how they're doing. The cold read is really where you can tell if they're ready to move on or if the information is too frustrating for them. So the cold read is one of the probably one of the important parts, one of the more important parts. Okay, so she said she just takes a piece of paper and will cover up the pictures. As they get older, the pictures will disappear on their own, that sort of thing. You're going to point to where the student is going to begin their reading. Again, something that they haven't read before. So it's with these books, they'll open up to, let's see. Here, this poor child has been reading for days and hours and hours. So I think he's pretty much. Have you gotten through this whole story yet? This is where he was, but we're not going to start him there when we do our practice one because he's probably read it 80,000 times by now. So when we do our little model of a cold read, we'll start him with something new. This is a good one, by the way. That one coming up. So we're going to time for 1 minute. With the timer, one thing, I have some students that they become so focused on this time and that timer that I've had to put it away. And even if they can't read the numbers, they'll be so curious about what's going on with that timer. It's just a distraction. And we're trying to get a good read. We want to see what they can do when they're at their best. So we want to make sure that anything that's distracting them or taking them away from doing their best, we're going to get rid of that. So with the timer, I'll hide it if they don't. Some are so focused they don't need it hid. After a while, it becomes so routine that you wouldn't necessarily need to do it. But with this one particular student, I did. Another thing with the timer, I will wait, and I'll tell them, as soon as you say your first word, then I'll hit the timer, because almost like that beep is like a starting gun effect, and some of them it'll kind of affect their reading. So we'll just I'll say, take a deep breath, and when you're ready, then you can begin. The tracking is a very important part. You want the students always pointing at the part of the word that they are on, and you want to have a nice flow. You don't want it choppy. Just want to have a flow with it. If I notice that someone during their cold read is not tracking, then I'll stop the timer and reset it, and we'll go over and we'll start, with brand new text wherever they were at. We'll start a new cold read because, again, I want that tracking helps them focus, and I want to get the best read that I can from them. Let's see. Keep track of all deviations from print. In the past, I've called them errors or mistakes, and I'm toying this year using maybe just focusing on that, calling them a deviation. Error or mistake kind of to me seems like it's something that they should have gotten right, whereas if we have them in the right book, you're supposed to make mistakes, right? If they're not making any mistakes, then or making any errors, any deviations from print, then the material's too easy, and it's fun. We all like to read when it's easy, but there's no progress being made. So keeping track of those one way in the counting on your fingers or using tally marks. One thing with the tally marks, I've noticed there are some students that are so honed in on that sound, it'll mess up their read. And if they hear that pencil go and make a tally mark, they'll go back and repeat the line, trying to figure out what it was that they missed. So, you have to kind of judge it. I've had to, I'll have my fingers down under the table and keeping tally marks or something like that. Another thing that we've done is if we have 2 sets of books, and we have a gal that has gone through, and by each line she's put the number of words in each sentence so that when we go through, we don't have to count up how many words they read. We can just add them. And then with that book, we can make, as long as we're quiet, make the tally marks. And sometimes I've had to twist my hand or turn sideways so they can't see, what it is that I'm doing. And then the last point on here, very important, and this is something that I was doing incorrectly, do not call attention to any of their deviations from print that they've made. The time for that, I think, would be during the word study, but this is more about tying everything together and getting a really good flow with it. So, errors will be made. That's human nature, and if we have them in the right spot, they will make errors. That will be pointed out when we go through some of the reading process, the actual roar piece of it, and they'll catch it, and if they don't catch it, they just haven't caught it yet. It's not like they're going to, go to the grave never knowing how to pronounce this one word or something. So this is more about the process and the flow. So I think I'll take questions at the end, but I think we'll go ahead and we'll do a practice cold read. So find the closest spot, or we can even why don't we start with this one? Okay. So the first thing, and I haven't done this as much, I'm going to be working on this year, is to just kind of do a picture walk and look. And what do you see here?
A bear with an old lady.
All right, and what is the bear doing?
Has his hands around her shoulder.
Yeah, and she looks horrified, doesn't she?
No,
she looks like she's pretty okay with that. All right, and what do we have going on here?
Bear spying.
The bear is spying on the gal as she's going out, apparently. She's got a hat on and an umbrella. Don't know if it's raining. All right, and what do we have for our title?
Aunt.
Let's see, that would be the Aunt Bet's pet. Okay.
Aunt Bet's pet.
Sometimes we've counted titles in with their words, and sometimes we haven't. I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference in the overall process. And as he reads, I'm going to make sure that he's tracking. He's got a smooth flow, catching the beginning and the endings of words, and make sure that he's aware that it's okay to make mistakes. If you come to a word that you don't know, which you should, then just do your best with it. Have fun with it. We're going to time for 1 minute, and it's not so much about the how many words he can spit out in a minute. What's it about?
It's about the correct words and the flowing of it.
Yeah, the accuracy is so more important. Get the accuracy first, and then the speed will eventually follow, just like anything. And you can, when you're talking to the students, like if they practice a musical instrument or if they're involved in a sport, you start and you practice and you get better and better at it as you go. It's more important to take your time and do it right and learn the right process than it is to, just go out there. If they start worrying too much about the words per minute, it's almost like they keep hitting the gas and stopping and starting, and it ends up being really choppy. So accuracy is what we're focused on. All right, so once you've done your work part of it, now it's time to see, with some progress and time them for, we call it their hot read. On here it's the post-test. We always insist to go back somewhere near or at the beginning of the practice session. I like to go back to right where they started. So he would start reading right from word 1 again. We would time him for a minute to see how how far you can get. Usually they'll go past it. Same thing, make sure that they're tracking, make sure that they're focused, keep track of, the deviations from print. And then those you can chart on the graph as well. Find their percentage and you can stack the more words that they had on there. So this is, I'm going to show it to him. You are done with your page. He needs a new graph, but so you can see some of the cold reads and then the hot reads after that, and you can see the pink up above the blue. And you can also see that he's starting to get up into this 97%. You will have students that will have a just outstanding read some days. Some days are just like that. Usually then we point out to them that, look, this is what your brain is capable of doing, and this is where you are headed. You may not be there yet, but that's where you're going. There will also be days where just nothing seems to work. And so you have those days, and then you say, this is where you've come from, but this is not how you read anymore. Look at your graph. This is where you are at right now. So I think it's more important to not be about the daily words per minute. You're looking for over time, and keep the students in mind of that, as well. Anything that you want to be good at, you have to practice, and you have to put in some effort, and that's what they're doing, and they're really working hard. And it does show, but it does take time. It's not going to happen automatically. No one's going to sit down and play the piano as a master piano player after their first lesson. You have to build up to that. Okay. And then on the last part of that page, roar practice musts. Repeat a sentence until your student is reading accurately and fluently with you. Accuracy is very important, but the fluency is also as important. You want to have a nice flow to it. And you saw how many times I was making poor Justin repeat that sentence, but we're going to get it. It's going to come. He is going to get it. Combine sentences to build fluency on the longer sequences. Make sure they are tracking at every step, and don't get bored with roar. Just kind of keep it light, casual. We're making progress. There will be errors. There will be deviations from print. That means you're in the right place. That means you're learning. They're all opportunities for learning, aren't they? So that's what we go through. If a student, I guess this is coming up here now. Reflection, how often did you need to repeat or combine? If they're doing a lot of repeating and a lot of combining, then maybe the student is not ready to move on to the next reading. So if he hadn't already been reading all morning, and if this was he came in fresh and he was reading like this, at the end I would probably make a judgment and say, you know what, we're going to start here again the next time that we do a roar, because there's room for more improvement here, more practice. So we can start there, and he can do, and let's say he does his cold read and he gets 100% on it, and we're still going to go ahead and do the roar process, because obviously there's still more that can be gained from there. Let's see, should the same passage be repeated? Other issues, tracking, refusal, attempts to distract you, time on task. They will want to know what their errors are, where did I make a mistake, that sort of thing. And you can just flatly tell them that, well, this is not the time to worry about this. We're worried about the progress and the process and the flow. We're not worried about the little specifics at this point. You will get it. So we're just going to read through and do this, and just keep up with that. Don't point out their errors. The time to work on those would be during the word studies and things like that. That's where we can be more specific. But this, we're going for the flow, and they'll see as you're reading through it. You can, kind of enunciate a little more or slow down at words that are giving them difficulties to kind of call their attention to it, and they will get it as they're going. Okay, when to move them on to a higher level book. You want to make sure that they're consistently showing, I believe she said about 6 to 8 times, not necessarily in a row, but it's showing that there's a pattern of being 97%, or I think she said 98% accuracy. Equal or greater than 98% accuracy on the pre-test, and then that their words per minute is within 10 of what should be expected for the grade level book that they're working in. So if someone was working in a 3rd grade level book, on here on a chart, it's 117 words per minute. If they're at 107 and they're showing 99, 100% accuracy, it's time for them to move into something harder. This is obviously not material that they need to spend any more time on. Let's maximize our time and get them working a little bit harder or something. They're ready for the next level. Get them working a little more. There's some examples in there. Accuracy, I think, is the main thing that you want to focus on. Think of anything that I forgot?